So this sermon actually gave me a really great opportunity to have a good discussion with Leighton and London, my girls. So they saw a little bit of the clips from the movie. They have never actually seen Remember the Titans, but they saw some of the clips, and London said she even got a little scared from some of the clips in the movie that was playing when we were playing the Ain't No Mountain High song. So it was like a really good opportunity to explain to them what was happening in that time. And the idea of people being treated differently because of the color of their skin, I wish you could have seen their face, because they were just flabbergasted. They were just like, they're like, what do you, that's crazy. Why would they do that? Like, and my sister is black. And so they're trying to like wrap their heads around like, well, would we have been treated differently? And, and all this kind of stuff. But it was a really good opportunity to pour into like them and just realize, like, I'm so glad this isn't the time that we live in anymore. Obviously we have our own issues, but it's not that.
That's right.
There's not laws in place that literally, if a black person uses a white person's bathroom, they can go to jail.
That's right.
And so they've learned some of this stuff, like the civil rights movement, Martin Luther King, all that in school. But being able to have that conversation was really meaningful, and just the importance of community. And I love that you chose this movie. I mean, it's been so long since I've seen it, and it is such a powerful movie and story.
That's right.
So why did you pick Remember the Titans?
Again, I love Denzel as he's a once-in-a-generation actor, right? And he represents that authenticity of the character, like Coach Boone is trying to show. Like, if you watch this movie, man, he's a black guy who is trying to get both blacks and whites to rise above, to see the bigger picture, that our true problems are not the color of our skin. They're not political. They're not about the laws that are in place, Jim Crow, whatever. They are about our inability to come to value one another as people. And he, as a black guy, like, tells one of the white coaches, he goes, funny, man, like, you don't give me crap when I'm giving the white players hell. You only give me crap when I'm giving the black players hell. Why is that? He goes, you can't keep them down. They need to face reality. Like, I have expectations that they need to meet regardless of the color of their skin. And the whole picture was about unity. Mm-hmm. Unity. You don't have to like each other, but you will respect each other, because you have to trust each other that I'm going to do my job on that field to accomplish our main objective, which is a unified front to win. I don't care where you go home to, whatever, what you believe about people who are white or black, but we will come together on a unified front. And I think that is an important message for the church, because the one unanswered prayer of Jesus in the scripture is, Father, make them one as you and I are one. And many theologians, I mean, there's a lot of debate over that, but that seems to be the one prayer that Jesus had for the church. Be unified in the objective, which is the transformation of people's lives, people's hearts. It's not about what you believe about the Bible. It's not whether I even said it in the sermon. It's not whether or not you believe I'm divine or not, because some of the first followers of Jesus thought he was, and many others didn't. But you never heard about the bickering or complaining or debating or whether or not Jesus was the real Son of God or really divine. They were like, there's a bigger picture of unity about this faith that we need to push forward. And that is the awakening and an awareness of who we are as God's children.
Yeah.
And so I chose that movie because it's not about football. It's about community. A community of diverse people of color, a community of diverse people of belief and opinion and political allegiance. And that's Suncoast, dude. We run the spectrum when you look into that crowd of variance in beliefs. But yet the unity that we have, despite the difference, is we are all suckers for a changed life.
Right.
And that's what we're here to do.
Yeah.
I'm not here to convince you to believe like me. I'm here to teach you how to become the best self you can be. because that's better for you and it's better for the world. Me arguing over the merits of the inerrancy of Scripture does nothing to better the world. That may create more us versus them mentality.
Yeah.
But what we can all agree on is that, man, when a person moves from darkness to light, boom, we all win. The world wins.
Yeah.
And so that's the heart of the movie, and that was the heart of the sermon. And that's why I used the first church in the book of Acts as an example based on their characteristics and attributes and what Suncoasters said about us through their own messages to me on social media. And I just correlated those to show we're a lot like this church, and even more so.
Yeah, I mean, I got super emotional when I read those comments on social media.
Yeah,
because
man.
it was just like, you know, being in the church world, like a lot of times we only hear the negative. You know, when people complain about, oh, the music's too loud, or I didn't like this specific sermon, or anything like that. People vocalize more of their disgruntlement.
That's right.
So it was just nice to see, you know, we were all dedicated and working really hard to make this thing as effective as it possibly can be. So it was really cool to see a lot of those stories of what people are feeling when they come experience Suncoast on a weekly basis.
Yeah, and to see, I think that the church responded overwhelmingly positively, because it was a very different sermon. Like, my points were very quick at the end.
Yeah.
And a lot of my sermon time was quoting from Suncoasters and calling them out. And I got permission to use their quotes. But to see people kind of go, yeah, like the worship, we're a church of worshipers, we're a church of learners. And just to see heads nodding, man, to go, we get it. Like, we get it, man. We're in a, you know, Dr. Bauckham says it a lot. You guys have been bigger, but we've never been better. And the growth that we're seeing in has less to do about putting butts in seats and more about, like I said, moving people from our circles of influence into our row of transformation at the church. And to see new faces and to see people sitting, I invited this person, they came with me today. Like, that's all it takes, man. We're not trying to, I don't think we're trying to become like this mega church or mega influential church. We're trying to do what we feel God has called us to do in this particular time. And what gets me is when people move away to different cities, because Sarasota, I'm finding out, is a very transient type city. You have people who come and then they got to go. Bro, I have 5 emails right now of people who've moved to Kansas City, to Illinois, to the Northeast. Where can I find? Please help me find a church like Suncoast. And the truth is, you're not going to. You're not going to find it. You may get close in terms of like the contemporary music and the style of music, but it still won't be you guys. And you may get close to a theology that's a bit more progressive, but it's not going to have that same dynamic. And so we have a really special thing going on, man. And to have our community respond to that social media sort of request survey and then to get the positive feedback. Again, it was a very different sermon, but I get it. But I wanted to put out there, we have to remain committed to community. And we're unstoppable, man, at that point.
Ironically enough, this weekend I was shared a article to an Atlantic post. And the article was basically talking about the value of church, but why so many people are leaving the church. And the author of the article was very pro-church. Not for any sort of like political or ideological meaning, but mainly centered around the community that comes and the community that's created through church.
Yep.
We're slowly creeping into a more and more isolated world. Tom Segura has this great bit. It's like, we're 5 years away from never having to leave our home ever again. He's like, you could just go on your phone. You could be sitting on your couch. You can go on your phone. You can say, I need bananas and hammers and a stuffed alligator.
That's
and
right.
then Amazon just drops it at your door.
That's right.
He's like, if you want to see people, you just whip out your phone and you just say hi. You know, like
That's right.
we are slowly creeping into more and more isolation.
Yep.
And what are we seeing as an effect of that? We're seeing increases in mental health issues, anxiety, depression, all of these things that are correlated to isolation.
That's right.
Isolation is a form of punishment
That's right.
and torture. And we're seeing that more and more, unfortunately.
Yep.
And so he was making the argument, the best thing that a church can provide to you is community.
That's right.
On a weekly basis. And I think you even said it like we're going by our middle name.
Yep.
Community. And we try to be a healthy community.
Yeah.
And so it's this balance of, and you had mentioned in the sermon, what does it mean to, you said we're not trying to save you from anything, we're trying to save you to something.
Yeah.
Can you break that down? Because you kind of like skirted over that just a little bit.
It's the end of the verse in Acts chapter 2 where it says something very, very beautiful about the first church. It said everyone liked them.
Yeah.
And the Lord added to their number daily those who were being, which means ongoingly, not one-time decision, being saved. And that word saved there, soteria, is not this being saved from something, like God is pulling you out of a potential risk. The word saved literally is about transformation. It's about being transformed. It doesn't mean you joined a church. It doesn't mean you repeated a prayer after a pastor. It doesn't mean you identified as a Christian now. It means something about this community that drew you in. You liked them. And now you're saved. Notice there were no parameters put on that verse that said, this is how they were saved. They repeated a prayer. They believed in Jesus. None of that is given. It said they liked them. And the Lord added to their number those who were being saved. Now, we bring all the theological baggage to that word and make assumptions about how they were saved, but it doesn't give any of that.
Yeah.
That's what we call eisegesis. You are adding something to that text that doesn't show itself. Mm-hmm. And so the way I frame it is God was not saving them from hell or from some eternal conscious torment or some place of everlasting punishment. God was saving them to a life of renewed life, renewed enthusiasm, a renewed vigor to be in community with someone. And I think that's what churches should exist to do, is to bring people in to the life of the community and to get them. So the way I say it, dude, is it's in my sermon notes and I didn't say it. I'm going to save it for later, but about 4,000 churches a year close. And it's not like these people transfer to like mega churches, because even mega churches are in peril. But this whole idea is a church will die when it stops giving its life away. Like that's how a church dies, when it doesn't have any more life to give. And that's the essence of the first church, is it was added, God added to their number daily those whose lives were being saved. So in other words, this church is giving its life away to save people to a life that they can now give their life away, and then they can give their life away. And it's a beautiful sentiment, man. Like it's this yin yang. Mm-hmm. A church will die the moment it stops giving its life away. And this is what I love about Suncoast. That's why I went through this whole, pontification of how much we give and how much we serve and how much, because that is the life flow of our church, giving back to the community. Mm-hmm. And as long as we keep that the main thing, we're going to continue to go. And so, again, the word salvation there, or being saved, soteria, is not about some eschatological or death of a person so they don't go to hell. It is about being integrated into a community who gives its life away to that person so now they can give that life away. Mm. And so it's a beautiful thing, man. It's a reciprocation. It's a resurrection of sorts, but not coming from dead to life. It's coming from life to life. Mm-hmm. So, yeah.
Why do you think there's a almost like a pride that comes from some Christians as far as like separating themselves from the world? It seems to be like it's almost like an elitism, like, oh, we're different from the world.
Yeah, superiority.
Yeah.
It's like it's superiority. I'm living this life of whatever. I read my Bible every day.
Yeah.
You don't.
But they're very much concerned about like separate, like I am not of the world, I am only in the world.
Yeah.
What do you, like, first of all, where do you think that kind of line of thinking came from? Because like, I don't believe like the way like Jesus separated himself more from the church than the world,
That's
right?
Yeah,
You know,
absolutely.
he wasn't hanging out with the priests and the preachers of the day. He was hanging out with the people that were considered the sinners, you know, like the prostitutes and the tax collectors and the fishermen and poor people. Like he was very much in the world.
That's right.
So where does this whole pervasive idea of like, well, we need to separate ourselves from the world?
Yeah, he was an opponent to those who had separated themselves from the world. And in doing so, he says this thing to the religious leaders. He goes, God, man, he goes, not only are you making it impossible for people to walk through the door to know God by all these rules and regulations and man-made laws that you have, when they get to the door, you're standing in front of it. So you're making it hard to access the door, and then you're blocking it yourself. And because of your own isolationist mentality. And so, I mean, that's a beautiful sort of rhetorical structure for Jesus to point. And he goes, and then when you do make a convert, you make them 3 times the son of hell than you do ever a son of the kingdom of God. So even when they make it through the door, it's a door of isolation. It's a door that they probably shouldn't have gone through anyway. And so Jesus is very, very meticulous and strategic to say, we are all the world. You know, Rob Bell said it the best. He goes, our greatest sin is thinking that our world is the world. And that's the mentality of these Christian sort of isolationists. You know, they only hang out with people from their church. And I was part of a church a long time ago, like families would marry. It was almost like arranged marriages that would happen in this little small church to make sure that the world didn't come in and influence the families.
Yeah.
It's a scary thing. It's almost cultish. I mean, that's how a cult operates, is to segregate itself from the world, which goes back to...
Which, ironically enough, we get called a cult, probably.
Yeah.
A few times a week. So
yeah, it's interesting.
Yeah.
But the truth of the matter is, how can you ever reach the world if you're not in the world with the truth? And that's what I say about Suncoast. Like, come experience what truth does.
Yeah. But I would also argue that we don't separate ourselves.
No.
Because like that separation gives you the superiority concept.
That's right.
Complex. And then you're just in an echo chamber of your own ideas. And then you don't open yourself up to the suffering.
That's right.
You know, you don't open up yourself to the real world suffering of other people that aren't in your exact community, right? And so the only way you learn, you know, the reason why white people hated black people is because they were segregated from them.
That's right.
They didn't know anything about them.
That's right.
And until they were actually integrated together, until this football team actually came together and suffered through these problems together.
That's right.
Did they realize, oh, we have way more in common.
That's exactly right.
You're not my enemy.
And the moment Bertier has, I forgot the guy's name, but the white kid who's a linebacker has his black friend who's also the linebacker come over. And there's this fear in the white family, like, oh, how do we act?
Right.
Should we be afraid? And then when they realize, like, he's human. He's a guy who loves football like our son. And our son loves him. And they become, and it's this opening of letting people into your life. And that's why I said, you know, our circle should swell so that our row can grow. And I'm seeing that with so many people because of the message of Suncoast. Because we have a lot of people who walk through these doors as of late that I'm meeting that are highly skeptical of organized religion.
Right.
And when they leave Suncoast, they go, I never would have thought I would have heard that said from a church. And I go, what? Like, no condemnation, no judgment, no fear, nothing held against you for past failings. Like, you're alive. Now let's give you new life.
Right.
It's not we're trying to save your life from something. We're trying to give your life a new sense of life. And that's my push, man. That's my push on Sundays is get out there in the world, whatever you want to call it, in your circle of influence, and just live. Like, just live your life.
But I also think we do bear a responsibility to take care of each other.
Oh, yeah.
And that is a lot for some people. You know what I'm saying? So it's not like it's just like, oh, come to Suncoast and we don't require anything of you. Like, we don't put the pressure of hell if you don't live up to these things on you. But we do require people to do things.
Bring something to the table.
Bring something to the table is one of our core values.
That's
like,
right.
we all bring something to the table. And to see the power of community and this connectedness that we all have is a beautiful thing. I mean, our good friend Evan, he's a bass player on stage. If you don't know who he is, he was in a really nasty dirt bike accident, and he's okay. He's still in the hospital. He's recovering, but he's okay, thankfully. But to see the power of community,
that's it,
has been unbelievable. Like, not just the family, but literally all of his friends have rallied around him to give them the things that they need to take care of his family while he's not able to be there. And it's really a beautiful thing. And his dad, we were singing Prince of Peace this weekend, and his dad was in one of the front rows, and I just saw him crying.
Oh, yeah, man.
And that just,
that's right.
I don't know if you noticed, like, I very rarely stop singing a song because I can't stop crying.
Yeah.
But it was like, it's that moment of like, I'm here with you.
Yeah.
We're in this together in the suffering.
Yeah.
And that's the beauty of this community, is like, no matter what you're going through, if something bad happens to you tomorrow, I've got your back.
That's
no
right.
matter what you need.
That's right.
And that is, I believe, what Gandhi was talking about when he talked about, like, we love Jesus. Like, Jesus's message is amazing.
Yep.
If the church could truly embrace the teachings of Jesus and not this rule book, and not this condemnation and not this separation, but actually like living in the world and being this force of good.
That's right.
That no matter what, like,
That's
if we can be viewed as the early church was, like, those people are awesome. I want to hang out with those people, as opposed to, and not just because, they tell us we can do whatever the hell we want to do.
Yeah.
No. It's because they're an effective change in the community.
Yep.
They're doing something amazing.
That's right.
And the litmus test for that is, if the church was gone tomorrow, what effect would it have on the world?
Yeah.
That needs to be our litmus test.
That's it, man.
Like, for our community, if Suncoast was gone tomorrow, what would happen to our community? Would our community miss us?
That's right on.
And I hope our goal is every single day to be making more and more of an impact in our community, that if we ever went away, the community would be like, what the hell happened?
Yep.
I needed them.
Where'd they go? Yeah, we'd have a heartbroken community here if we weren't. I mean, it leads well into what's coming this Sunday, man. I mean, we're doing Toy Story, and it's bring something to the table. Mm-hmm. Comparison is not what we bring to the table.
Right.
And you'll find, like, Woody and Buzz, go at it in this comparison war. Who's the better toy? Who's the newer toy? Doesn't matter, dude. It doesn't matter. We all have intrinsic value. We all have something to bring to the table. And some people in Suncoast have millions of dollars to bring to the table. Some of us have a couple of dollars. But it's amazing what God can take and use for good. And again, it's bring something to the table, because you have something in your repertoire to bring to the table that can change someone's life.
Yeah.
And comparison kills that confidence that we should have in God, in us. And so I'm not worried about your confidence in how well you look, how much you can lift, or whatever. The confidence we have is in Christ. And that's what Paul writes about. That's what Peter writes about. That's what Jesus says, is that our confidence is built upon who God is within us to accomplish that we can't do on our own. And so comparison is the recipe to kill that, man. So it's going to be bad to the bone. Very moving one coming up. So
I'm very excited about it. This has been such a fun series, and we'll keep going.
Let's do it.
All right, brother.
Thanks,
Thank
man.
you.